Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachari Yamuna Tera Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivrajacacharya Shutra Srimadesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4, entitled Ambarish Maharaj offended by Durvasa Muni. Text 47. Tam apatanim jvalatim asihastam padam bhuvam vepayantim samudviksha nam chachalam padat nripam tam apantim jvalatim tam apantim jvalatim astihastam padabhavam asihastam padabhavam vepayantim samudviksha vepayantim samudviksha nacha chala padan ripa nacha chala padan ripaha tad apantim jvalantim tam apantim jvalantim asihastam padabhuvam vedapayantim samudviksha nacha chala padam nripaha tam apantim jvalatim asihastam padabhuvam vepayantim samudviksha Nachachala padanripam Tamapantim jalatim Asihastam padabhuvam Vepayantim samudviksha Nachachala padanripaham. Sihastam padabhuvam Antim samudviksha Padanripa. Tadapantim jalantim Asihastam padabhuvam Vepayantim samudviksha Nachachala padanripa. Tamapantim jalatim Asihastam padabhuvam Vepayantim samudviksha Nachachala padanripa. Tadapantim jalatim Asihastam padabhuvam Nachachala padanripa. Matajis. Tam, that, demon. Apatanim, coming forward to attack him. Jvalatim, blazing like fire. Asihastam, with a trident in his hand. Pada, with his footstep. Bhuvam, the surface of the earth. Vepayantim, causing to tremble. Samudviksha, seeing him perfectly. Na, not. Chachala, moved. Padat, from his place. Nripa, the king. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Taking a trident in his hand and making the surface of the earth tremble with his footsteps, that blazing creature came before Maharaj Ambarish. But the king, upon seeing him, was not at all disturbed and did not move even slightly from his position. Purport. Narayana parasarve nakutaschana bhibyati. A pure devotee of Narayana is never afraid of any material danger. There are many examples of devotees such as Prahlad Maharaj, who was tortured by his father but was not at all afraid, although he was only a 5-year-old boy. Therefore, following the examples of Maharaj Ambarish and Prahlad Maharaj, a devotee should learn how to tolerate all such awkward positions in the world. Devotees are often tortured by non-devotees, yet the pure devotee, depending fully on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is never disturbed by such inimical activities. Om Jnanatimidam Dasya Gyananjana Shalakha Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Preshta Bhutale Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Reshtarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Tvamapa Natim Jvalatim Asihastam Padabhuvam Vepayantim Samudviksha Nachachala Padan Nripa. Taking a trident in his hand and making the surface of the earth tremble with his footsteps, that blazing creature came before Maharaj Ambarish, but the king, upon seeing him, was not at all disturbed and did not move even slightly from his position. I will just read the previous verse, which doesn't have a purport. As Durvasa Muni said this, his face became red with anger. Uprooting a bunch of hair from his head, he created a demon resembling the blazing fire of devastation to punish Maharaj Ambarish. Here Durvasa Muni is displaying the quality of anger. And as we know, the quality of anger is not a very favorable quality. It's very unfavorable for the devotional service. Only in very rare cases the quality of anger can be used. And this is mostly only for sake of protecting a devotee. Here the example of Prahlad Maharaj in the purport has been given. And in order to protect Prahlad Maharaj, we know that Lord Nrsimhadev displayed an anger. But as we know, that was transcendental anger. It was not anger born of more of ignorance, anger born of false ego, false identity. So the anger of Lord Nrsimhadev, in order to protect Prahlad Maharaj, is the anger which is worshipable anger. Is the anger which is transcendental anger. It is not mundane. It is not ordinary anger. It is not anger that is despicable, that is just self-centered and selfish anger for sake of protecting something in relationship to this material body. So Lord Nrsimhadev also became very, very furious. He became extremely angry. And we know that even after Hiranyakashipu has been killed, he was still displaying that anger to some extent. Just like sometimes when if we had a chance, some of you might have had the chance to experience what an earthquake is. There is that major trembling that takes place, which is very, very strong, which is very high, is very devastating. And then of course, even later on, there are some trimmings that come after that. So even though Lord Nrsimhadev displayed such kind of very, very powerful anger while fighting with Hiranyakashipu and thereafter killing him, still even after that he was still quite upset. To that extent even that nobody dared to approach him. Not even demigods. Even Lakshmi, she was requested by Lord Brahma to go and pacify the Lord. She wasn't daring. She was thinking, I don't know, this is not my Lord. This lady. She was very difficult. She had hard time to even conceive of the idea to approach Lord Nrsimhadev and try to pacify him. Then everybody pushed Prahlad Maharaj, said, the Lord appeared because of you. You go, you pacify him. And as we see, like in all of those cases where Prahlad Maharaj has been tortured, he didn't see any difference between the anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or any kind of caressing, caring mood that the Lord would display. As we know, the most ferocious animals, like even lion or any other, they have both, they can display both features. Yeah. Very, very ferocious feature and then very caring feature. The lion will also, he will grab the cub, nicely, with all his sharp teeth, and he will, catch it here behind the neck. and carry it from one place to another like we see the cats here do. But the same teeth, as Prabhupada would give the analogy, same teeth could be could be felt by a rat or by any other animal. That lion, for example, they could feel that blows of death. Same teeth. Like the crocodile, for example. Crocodile has very powerful jaws. Crocodile could crack the spine of a buffalo. It is that strong, it's that powerful. But then simultaneously you could see that he could just very gently pick up the eggs. Just imagine such a very, very fragile eggs. He could transfer from one place to another and so on. So Lord Nrsimhadev displayed that anger, but actually Prahlad Maharaj knew that I have nothing to fear because the Lord appeared because of me. The Lord came here to protect me. Why should I fear my loving Lord? He had no reason to fear him. So in that sense, devotee has no reason to fear the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we fear the Lord, that is only because of ignorance. We know that in this material world, the most predominant level of approaching the Lord or the relationship that anyone has with the Lord, it's the quality of fear. It is because of fear. We worship the Lord. Why? Because we fear Him, that He might strike us with a thunderbolt or send some kind of calamity upon us or make something happen to us. And we obey Him. And if we don't obey, then therefore we become fearful. And therefore we have to do something to pacify, to appease. We have to perform some kind of sacrifice. So that kind of lowest of the conceptions in the relationship of the Lord is the most prominent conception that people have in the relationship of the Lord. But as we know, we have to ascend from the fear to love. That is the process of bhakti. Fear, then at least having maybe some desire, like Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 4 types of people that approach me, arto jigyasu artati, that approach me, maybe desire, maybe then some principle of duty, and then ultimately there's a principle of love. So Prahlad Maharaj was the highest devotee. As we know, he's the Mahajan. He had no fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he had already a relationship with the same Supreme Personality of Godhead from within the heart. And he heard of it so much from Narada Muni while he was in the womb of his mother, Kayadu. So he had no fear. There was no reason for him to fear. So whether the Lord displays anger, He displays kindness, whatever, it's just the same thing. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would pray, Aslishyava padaratam darshanam armahatam karotava. Whatever it is, whether you abandon me, whether you embrace me, actually everything is the ecstasy for the devotee. There's no different. On the transcendental level, there is no duality. But we see that here in this material world, actually any fear that is arisen is caused by the duality. That is the real cause of fearfulness that exists within this material realm. But as soon as we eradicate that kind of dual conception of good, bad, pleasure, pain, and honor, dishonor, whatever else there might be, there is no fear, there is no anxiety. So only on the level of duality that fear arises. And what is that duality? Basically it means it's an ignorance. Fear only arises out of ignorance. So for the devotee who is on the transcendental platform, there's no question of ignorance. He's fully cognizant of his own position. He's fully cognizant of the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when one understands that sambandha or relationship between himself and the Lord, where there can be any question of fear. There's no question of any fear. Where that identity is fully established, that I'm the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I'm eternally connected to Him, because actually, even in that sense, the Lord cannot abandon us, because we are eternally connected to Him. There's that eternal connection that exists. Only again, out of ignorance, out of some apparent misunderstanding or the gross misunderstanding, of our position with the Supreme Lord, then only we can think, oh, the Lord can abandon us. But Lord can never abandon us. He cannot live without his devotees. Yeah, Krishna can never be without his devotees. Where did we ever see Krishna being without his devotees? He's always there, with some of his devotees, with someone. Yeah. He cannot be alone. This is something that Krishna cannot live without the devotees. Yeah. And devotees are always present. If we examine all the pastimes that Krishna is performing throughout the day, at every moment Krishna is with someone. At every moment he's with someone. He's never alone. So then there is the question of being abandoned by Krishna. Of course, sometimes Krishna may jokingly kind of threaten that he will disappear and leave someone without his association. As we know in Dwarka, stories of, like for example with Rukmini, when he was pointing out that I'm not a worthy husband, I'm not so good, I'm not qualified to be her, so maybe I should just leave. And then we saw that Rukmini, she became very, very emotional. She became very emotional because she couldn't bear even thought of separation from Krishna. She became very, very emotional. But then Krishna, of course, assured her that that will actually never happen. And we know that separation, this is the main cause, that Vipralamba Bhav is the main cause of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. To actually taste that sweetness, taste that nectar of separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Essentially, there is no separation. There is union in separation and separation in union. You know the story of Srimati Radharani sitting on the, I think it was Prem Sarovar, together with Krishna, and then Madhu Mangal was also there. And then that bee came buzzing, as always the bees are always around Radharani and Krishna. And the Madhu was kind of buzzing around, humming. And Radharani requested Madhu Mangal to please chase that bee. And then Madhu Mangal did attempt to chase the bee, and then finally he did chase the bee, and then when he spoke that the Madhu has gone away. And then Srimati Radharani, although being in association of Krishna, she understood that actually Krishna is gone. Just that thought that Krishna is gone, although just sitting just right beside him, she became very, very emotional. And the tears flowed from her eyes and created that pond. So then Krishna understood actually that love of Srimati Radharani for him and the love of Rajabasis, that this is something that is so strong, that is so deep. So then he decided actually that even though being in their presence, that they still feel that separation. And this is the point when Krishna decided actually to go to Mathura, not to be physically present. But as we know, he was always present within the hearts of the residents of the Vrindavan. So in both ways, whether being with them or being separated from them, they would experience both ecstasies in separation or or in the union. So in both ways, so Krishna in this way wanted to taste also and make Brajabasis to taste both of the nectars of association or separation from him. And we know that this is one of the highest ecstasies that no other teaching or sampradaya essentially understands or exalts or promotes. It is nowhere given that such kind of exalted state of the relationship that devotee can have in relationship to Krishna. So for that very reason, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared just to taste that nectar of separation from Krishna and the union with the Krishna, but essentially more that separation that Srimati Radharani was experiencing in relationship to him. So that fearfulness of being left by Krishna essentially doesn't exist within those who understand that Krishna can never leave us. But still there might be some tinge, there might be some kind of conception that Krishna might do that. And this is what devotees cannot bear. Although in reality we know that Krishna will never abandon us. He can never abandon, because he is always within the hearts of the devotees, and it is said that devotees are in the heart of the Krishna. Because Krishna always thinks of his devotees. And this is why the whole pastime of Govardhan Lila have been performed in order that Krishna displays that affection towards everyone, so that simultaneously everyone was present and tasted that relationship with Krishna in the same time, at the same place. So therefore that fear is not there, it's not present when we know that Krishna is always our well-wisher, as it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam is the most well-wishing friend on each and every entity, each and every being. So here we see also that Maharaj Ambarish, along with, as Srila Prabhupada is saying in the purport, with Prahlad Maharaj, he displayed that quality of fearlessness, not being fearful of Durvasa's Muni, demon, that threatened to punish him. So Maharaj Ambarish didn't display any kind of disturbance. He was just very calm, very peaceful. Sometimes somebody may say that yes, some kind of sign of calmness and peacefulness might be there due to being stunned in the fear and of the fear. But we know that that was not the case here. Because Maharaj Ambarish had full conviction and full faith that whatever happens, no matter what happens, it just doesn't matter. Whether the body gets destroyed or in any kind of way we become harmed, the spirit soul cannot be harmed. And our relationship with Krishna can never become hampered. So then where is the question of fear? Where is the question of being in anxiety? So therefore he just peacefully stood, whatever happens, my dear Lord. Like we know, a very beautiful pastime of Bhishmadev, when Krishna rushed upon him. So any danger that might happen, on anything that might happen to a devotee, they actually see Krishna. They actually see Krishna. Whether manifested in one form or the other form, in one way or the other, devotee sees Krishna. Like Srila Prabhupada, when during the Second World War, the Japanese were bombing Calcutta, Prabhupada peacefully sat down and he was eating his meal. Everyone else was rushing into basement, or Prabhupada wouldn't leave. He was, whatever happens. Krishna may come in this form, Krishna may come in that form. For Srila Prabhupada it didn't matter. Yeah. And even sometimes devotees would question Srila Prabhupada. There was some, in about 1975, there were some threats about nuclear war and this and that. But Srila Prabhupada, in whichever way Krishna comes, for the devotees it doesn't matter. They're always fearless. Because they see Krishna, whether coming in the form of a bomb, whether come in this form, whether come in the most pleasing form, it just doesn't matter. For a devotee, it just doesn't matter. They always see Krishna in everything. Ultimately, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Sachitananda Vigraha. Anadiradir Govinda. Sarva Karana Karana. Krishna is the cause of all the causes. So whichever cause, whatever it's manifested at some kind of secondary cause or this, ultimately devotee understands Krishna is behind everything. So then where is the question of fear? There's a very, very beautiful incident and pastime of the devotees going and preaching in Pakistan. That time that was Bangladesh. And in early 70s. And the situation had become very, very alarming and very distressing. Many people have been displaced and even murdered, and finally devotees have been called to leave. And Brahmananda, Prabhu Swami at that time, and Pusta Krishna, They were both there preaching in Bangladesh. And they boarded the bus which was leading to the border. And so many people were there. And finally, when they came to the border, then they saw that there were so many buses there, and many people, have been also murdered. And they were also pulled out of the bus. Everyone had to exit, and they were just lined up. And they were just about to be shot with the machine guns of all the soldiers that were present there. But they just calmly, they put their hands in the bee bag, and they just, they could have disguised themselves, they could have put some different dress, they could have grown the beard or something, they could have tried to somehow or other, find some means to cross the border, come back to India, but they didn't do that. They were just taking the shelter of the holy name. And they were just peacefully chanting. And all the soldiers, when they saw them with the danda and in their saffron robes and just very peacefully, very calmly, just chanting their rounds, they just became so unnerved that they were unable to shoot. And this is how actually Krishna saved them. Yeah. Soldiers, they must be some real saintly personalities. Yeah. They just let them go. They just didn't have a nerve practically to shoot. So this is the circumstance when a devotee takes full shelter of Krishna and just lets it go. Whatever, like Draupadi, whatever happens, it doesn't matter. Whatever Krishna, you want to crush me, you want to embrace me, whatever it is, whatever it might be there. Of course, for us, this is not so easy. I can recollect some of my experiences while going in some of the Muslim countries. You have to go a little bit disguised, and you just don't know what may happen. Only in Turkey once I was walking through the streets, like this, in the Shafran and Shika. And we had some program. Sometimes devotees have a program in the park. But it's not such a light, easy feeling. And even on airport, somebody once asked me, then what is this? Like Shika and so on. I just said it's kind of a hairstyle. What are you going to say? It's like, so it's not. So sometimes it can be, we're not on that level of Prahlad Maharaj or Ambarish Maharaj. You have to be a little cautious what to do. Can't be just, completely open. So we still have to work a lot to come to that level of complete fearlessness. Like there is interesting pastime also in Mahabharata of Parikshit Maharaj, how he was fearless. And this is what whole Srimad Bhagavatam has been spoken, this whole pastime of that fearlessness of Parikshit Maharaj. Of course, there's another Parikshit Maharaj. We know about the one from Srimad Bhagavatam, but there is the one mentioned in Mahabharata, which was different Parikshit Maharaj. From that we understand that this is actually a post. So that Parikshit Maharaj, he became very fearful, understanding that Takshaka is just about to come and bite him and end his life. So the extent that he built a tower that nobody was allowed to enter and nobody was actually capable of entering. And at that point, Takshaka assumed the form of a bug and was placed in the basket with the fruits. And all the Takshaka's friends, the Nagas, they took forms of Brahmanas and they entered into the tower. And that basket of fruits was presented to Parikshit Maharaj, and he was kind of joking with his ministers. He saw that bug and he was kind of saying, and that bug had very big eyes, very vicious eyes. It was a very strange black bug. But he was kind of jokingly remarking, said, well, let this bug be a Takshaka, not knowing that it is a Takshaka. And then and he placed it on the neck saying, let this bug bite me. And then in this way the curse will be fulfilled. Ascribing the position of Takshaka to the bug. But actually that was a Takshaka. And Takshaka assumed the real form and they bit him. And because of that power of that poison, he was instantly burned into the ashes. That was the position of previous Parikshit Maharaj. He was not a pure devotee. But we see that this Parikshit Maharaj, who is a pure devotee of the Lord, which is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, he had completely different disposition. He didn't have any fear. He was saying, okay, let Takshaka come. He could counteract the curse. But he didn't do so. Let Takshaka come, let it bite. You know, what does it matter? So many years living, but not being Krishna conscious. Better a moment of Krishna consciousness than so many, like Prabhupada would give example of, like a tree is living for so many years, but not being Krishna conscious. What is the use? So Parikshit Maharaj sat on the Ganga, heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami, and he knew he could have been, nothing could have happened to him. And this is the whole reason why King Janamejaya, he called for a snake sacrifice. This is how Mahabharata essentially starts. Yeah. One of the most prominent stories, it's the snake sacrifice. And why it happened? Because King Janamejaya thought that these snakes are just causing trouble. Takshaka, because of his pride, he actually prevented Kashyapa Muni, who is his own father, for going and saving Parikshit Maharaj. And hearing that because of his own pride, for concern for his own prestige, actually Takshaka convinced Kashyapa Muni not to go and save Parikshit Maharaj. He ordered that snake sacrifice. He decided to punish Takshaka. Like here we see Durvasa deciding to punish, that kind of punishment. This is the of course, duty of a superior and duty of those who are supposed to rectify and correct those who are inferior to them. So King Janamejaya didn't decide that just whimsically because Parikshit Maharaj was his father and that's all. And because he felt there was some personal connection behind. No, he decided it on the principle of Takshaka being proud and acting inappropriately. Because Kashyapa Muni, he considered he had the power to counteract the Takshaka's poison. And when he met Takshaka, he was immediately ready to demonstrate this. And then Takshaka was inquiring that, what is the point now? Even if you save Parikshit Maharaj, he's destined to die. He has been cursed. It is not like some living other being that still has some years to remain. He will anyway become dead one way or the other. But being assigned that task of biting by the curse of Shringi, by biting of Parikshit Maharaj, Takshaka felt also very proud that I'm capable of killing, my poison is capable of killing any living entity. And if that wouldn't be the case, then the whole pride of Takshaka, if you can imagine the celestial snake, the power of the celestial snakes, the nagas that they have, and being incapable of killing just one ordinary human being, this is how Takshaka was feeling, threatened in such a way that this might happen. And I may be a cause of so many different kinds of remarks that I have not power even to kill one ordinary human being. So he tried to dissuade Kashyapa Muni, saying him that if you're going, as Kashyapa Muni said, I will receive some wealth, I will receive some benefits from the Parikshit Maharaj for saving him. And it's such a pious activity actually, and glorious activity to save such a noble king. But then Takshaka argued, whatever the king would give you, I'll give you double. I would give you more. And he used all kinds of various means just to dissuade Kashyapa Muni from going to save Parikshit Maharaj. And then Takshaka wanted to demonstrate the power of his poison, and he bit the banyan tree. And because the poison was so powerful, that banyan tree was instantly reduced in the heap of ashes. When the fire is very strong, then there's not much ashes that remains. It's very, very less. But then Kashyapa just chanted the mantra and brought back that whole tree back to life. This is how Takshaka was stunned. But still, as I said, he was persuading Kashyapa not to go, just because of his own personal concern. And then still, while hearing that story, King Janamejaya, he inquired, is this a true story? Is it really something that happened? How do we know? Maybe somebody is just narrating that story. Maybe somebody just heard from some unreliable source. How could we trust that story? And then the minister said, we know a person actually who was helping to build the yagyas for the brahmanas and constructing all of providing all the items required for the sacrifices. And he's the witness. He went to that same place, to the forest, to collect the dry wood for the sacrifice. And he was present there. And that same man was summoned, and he narrated the whole incident, pointing out that he saw definitely and he overheard that conversation. And at the very moment, he himself actually was present within that banyan tree, collecting the dry branches. And when the Chaka bit the banyan tree, he was also burned to death. And he was also revived by Kashyapa. So then King Janamejaya was fully convinced that actually, yes, Kashyapa could revive a person. He had that power, not just the tree or anything else. And this was the reason why he called for that snake sacrifice. That these snakes are just causing the trouble. And of course, he called the priest Utanka, who also had unpleasant experiences with Takshaka, who went to steal earrings meant for his guru's wife. And so therefore the whole incident took place. So we see that Parikshit Maharaj, he was fearless. He was fearless in spite of that curse that he would die within the 7 days. And as we know, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam essentially is the lesson for us not to worry, not to become bodily conscious, but to understand that we have that eternal relationship with Krishna, and therefore there is no any cause for the fear, which again, as I said, arises just from that duality. There's something mortal, or there's something temporary there. Everything all in relationship to the body only. Yeah. So devotee is never fearful. He's always taking shelter of the Lord as much as possible, of course, as much as our personal realization is. Yeah. But the principle here of punishment, also mentioned here, it is significant because it is a duty, as I mentioned earlier, of somebody who is on the superior position to correct somebody who is on inferior position. And Durvasa Muni, being a Brahmana, in that kind of sense, he did consider that, of course, not correctly, that Maharaj Ambarish didn't follow the rules and principles that were supposed to be followed. And this was the reason why he decided to punish him. But again, that punishment was not punishment with a desire to benefit. It wasn't the punishment for the welfare of the person who is about to be punished. It was punishment just because of, again, selfish, egoistic interest. Because we know that Durvasa Muni, his incarnation of he's manifested from the mode of ignorance. And he has a lot of pride, he has a lot of false ego. As we heard here in the past tense, he could have fasted whole day, not eating anything, controlling his senses, anything, but he's very proud of his position. That's why he's incarnation of the mode of ego. And this is why so easily the anger can be aroused within him. But again, that anger, it's not the anger for the benefit of somebody that he's upset and angry about. It mostly is kind of for his own personal or in relationship to his personal interest or position. So it's more kind of manifested from that egoistic point of view. So therefore, that punishment wasn't beneficial. It wasn't the punishment of somebody who is to be rectified, somebody who is to be corrected and elevated, but it was more like a punishment of the conqueror, somebody who has felt being offended and therefore desiring just to crash the opposite person. Just like in the war, when somebody overtakes somebody else and just completely trashes and smashes that person and steps with a boot on its head and just completely desiring complete destruction of that kind of personality. There are two types of punishments. So that one is not desirable at all. It's not beneficial at all for anyone. But there is a punishment, as a punishment of a parent who knows that somebody has to be corrected, the child has to be corrected. So that kind of punishment is beneficial, that kind of punishment is good, because then it benefits the person. So in our relationship also, we all are assuming certain types of roles. Sometimes we are in relationship to someone, we are in superior position, and again in relationship to somebody else, we are in inferior position. We always have both positions are always present throughout practically our existence. So either we are sometimes dutiful to correct someone, and sometimes we are in the position to be corrected. But again, in both cases, we have to consider the consequences and the way we are reacting to how certain correction and certain receivement of the correction should be manifested. Because otherwise, what may happen is that we overdo it. Either overreact to how we have been punished, or we overpunish somebody. You know, the most exemplary pastime of that overdoing or overpunishing is the pastime again of the Govardhan Lila, where just for not being worshipped, Indra decided to wipe up all the residents of Vrindavan. That is overpunishment. It was not something that would benefit the residents of Vrindavan or correct them or bring them to some kind of a positive condition. No, it was overpunishing. And this is why Krishna had to interfere in such a way to, again, punish Lord Indra, teach him a very good lesson. And so many pastimes, or Jamadagni, for example, punishing his wife. So many pastimes where over-punishing is present, but then the person, therefore, who punishes, he has to meet then, the reactions for that kind of activity. And again, if we also don't understand that punishment is actually, if it is beneficial, if it's met by the superiors, then it's actually in order to correct us, in order to benefit us, in order to make us advance, then again, we don't have a proper, appropriate understanding. Like how many times Srila Prabhupada would get upset. He would get angry, he would get very, very upset, because devotees were unqualified in many ways and sometimes acting, being covered by the lower modes of the material nature. And Prabhupada would sometimes even yell and scream to the extent of his vein being visible on his neck. But that was for the benefit of those whom he actually loved and cared for. And he would never chastise anyone whom he understood would not be able to receive that chastisement. He could see whether somebody can bear it or not, but actually that chastisement was the sign of his mercy. Srila Prabhupada didn't chastise anyone just because he felt personally offended. How many times and in how many ways devotees would offend Srila Prabhupada. But still Srila Prabhupada was so caringly taking care, or so caringly being concerned for their welfare. He was just tolerating, being very, very tolerant. There's a whole incident that happened during the opening of the Vrindavan temple where nothing was ready. And things got delayed for years practically. And nothing was done appropriately. Prabhupada was very, very upset with such kind of management going on at that time. Yeah. But still, he never abandoned anyone. He never abandoned anyone. Yeah. Once only Srila Prabhupada threatened, as far as I've heard, in case of one devotee, that he would kind of take the beads back. Because some devotees were absolutely non-serious about spiritual practice. But still, Prabhupada would overlook. Still he would overlook. He was very, very tolerant, very merciful. But he had to punish, because we know if we are on this level of the lower modes of material nature, completely absorbed in the body, and if we don't get corrected, then how is it possible for us to advance to the higher levels of spiritual realization? It is material principle, but it is also a spiritual principle. That punishment has to be there, and we have to receive it in a positive manner. And even if we sometimes feel that something has been unjust, then even then, just because of that attitude that Krishna is using somebody else as the instrument, whether it be my karma, or whether it be more directly or more closely connected to the spiritual advancement, in both ways we benefit. And there's no reason to then overreact from our personal side. Yeah. So this is another sign of devotee being unaffected and seeing everything again as Krishna's mercy. And therefore being fearless. Fearless, whatever happens. In Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada explained that fearlessness is the quality of somebody who is a brahmachari, of somebody who is a sannyasi, or basically meaning anybody, but who is on the higher level of the devotional service, having that kind of consciousness. Because we know again that whatever happens, it is Krishna's mercy, especially those who surrender to Krishna. Then definitely dive in prakriti ashritaha. Mahatmanastu mam partha, dive in prakriti ashritaha. That whoever is on the surrender unto the internal potency of the Lord, to that higher nature of the Lord, he has nothing to fear. Yeah. But of course, somebody who is not surrendered to the higher nature of the Lord, who is surrendered to the lower nature of the Lord, then there's every reason to fear. Every reason, because there's nothing that we can hold upon. There's nothing that we can control. And whenever we can't control anything, then of course there is every reason to become fearful. And what is there that we can control in this world? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So this is why everyone fears at every moment. This is why the predominant factor of human existence, materially, is the fear. It's just fear. So if we have this understanding, if we know through these examples of Parikshit Maharaj and all the other devotees, Ambarish Maharaj here, how they were fully Krishna conscious and how were fully surrendered, and we also apply the same principles and same practice in our life, then we can also achieve that kind of fearlessness from any kind of material existence. And as Parvati cursed Chitraketu, then in Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Shiva is replying, is saying that this is a devotee. He has been corrected, he has been punished because Mother Parvati acted as a mother. She is Durga, she is the mother of the whole universe. Lord Shiva is the father. She did correct him for being somewhat proud, but still he was a very great devotee. And Lord Shiva replied saying that whether devotee, being in the hell or heaven, for him it doesn't matter. Any kind of circumstance, it doesn't matter, because he is still a devotee of the Lord. So that's why he is fearless. Fully taking shelter of the Lord and fully being surrendered to the will of the Lord. And ultimately we know what happened. He was very soon brought back to his original position in relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is what we find here in this verse, that Maharaj Ambarish, although being exposed to such kind of threat, of even threat of losing his life, he didn't consider it threatful or considering himself to be in danger at all, just because he had fully taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like Srila Prabhupada mentions here, as Prahlad Maharaj also did. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Devakinandam Prabhu.
I have a comment and a question. The comment is, Ambarish Maharaj, who have fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, being fearful is not part of the devotee who are fully surrendered. Like Prabhupada said, it's our duty to serve Krishna, and it is Krishna's duty to protect us. So that way, Ambarish was totally 101% surrender to Krishna. And it's a great lesson for us to learn that we have a lot of fear. Temple president will throw us out. Temple commander will ask us to go. So all this fear will go when we surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My question is, thank you for a wonderful class. About 2 Parikshit you mentioned. Can you clarify where it is from or how it is? So far I heard only 1 Parikshit. News to me.
Because in Mahabharata, the way one mentioned in Mahabharata ends his life, it's a whole different story. And then in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's a whole different story. In Mahabharata, Maharaj Parikshit didn't go to the river Ganga and sat down and heard Srimad Bhagavatam. That is not there. He has been bitten while being in the fort, protected by that fort, and he ended his life there. So it's a whole different, seems like to be a whole different personality.
That does not make there are two Parikshit.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
That does not make that there are two Parikshit. Maybe, all the Puranas, if you see, the Bhagavatam and Skanda Purana or Padma Purana or Harvamsa Purana, all the story, whether Krishna's birth or Radharani's birth, they are all two different, they are differently mentioned. Different time plus circumstances, differently mentioned. And in Mahabharata, same Parikshit, his son was Janmejaya, because after Mahabharata itself, Janmejaya is one who performed this Jagga, sacrifice to kill all the snakes, just to take revenge. And in Bhagavatam 12th canto, if you see that photo, the picture, Maharaj Parikshit is sitting and the snake coming and burning him. So Mahabharata may have not mentioned that he heard Bhagavatam for 7 days, but burning process was same way, both places.
Because it was explained just like Ramayana. As always, it's the same story, but sometimes presented or manifested in a different way. But so I heard that quite strongly many times from Bhaktivedanta Purna Maharaj. His point was, at least that's what his stand is, that it's every time it's a different parikshit, but that this parikshit he mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, this one is a devotee of the Lord, and the other one was not. That is what he said.
It appears that you are correct and also Devakinandan Prabhu is correct. Both are correct in the sense that there may be one lesson, many teachers, and there may be many lessons, one teacher. You understand the principle? There may be one lesson, more than one teacher. But there may be one teacher, more than one lesson to learn from. So that principle sometimes can be applied, that both of you may be correct. Because if you are quoting some person who understands it that way, say like His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami, and Devakinandan Prabhu is quoting that, Mahabharata begins with, Maharaj Janamejaya was actually the, connected to Maharaj Parikshit, which is in this type of Bhagavata. So the reconciliation can be there. At the same time, it can also lead to transcendental argumentative exchanges, which is on the transcendental platform, even if there's some disagreement, but it's about Krishna and his devotees. So that's also can be taken in that spirit. Is that all right?
It could be Kalpabhed. Kalpabhed. In some other Kalpa, actually Mahabharata, the story of Krishna saving Parikshit Maharaj is different. Because in Mahabharata it is said that Uttara comes running. The boy is already born, and Uttara comes running with the dead body of the boy. And then all the sages are there, and Krishna is there. Then she prays, please save this boy, please save this boy. Then Krishna says that, then it is in the Akashvani it says that anybody who has never told a lie, who is a perfect brahmachari, if he touches the boy will come back to life. Then at that time Krishna says that if I am a brahmachari, and then if I never told any lie, this boy should come back to life. Then he touches, and then so this is different. Like that, this pastime of Parikshit Maharaj losing his life is completely different in Mahabharata. So maybe we could understand that it is Kalpabhed. in some other kalpa it happened like this.
Do you mean Parikshit always had a son Janmeja in each kalpa?
Like Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Krishna's pastimes sometimes they differ. Just like this time in this kalpa, Krishna killed Keshi demon. But in some other kalpas, Krishna doesn't kill Keshi demon, he keeps him alive and then he takes all the Vrajavasis for world tour on Keshi demon. No. So like this, different, same pastime happens differently. And sometimes same Parikshit Maharaj, same Janmejaya Maharaj. It's like that only.
Anyway, it's hard for me to accept it. Because so far I have heard time and again, Parikshit Maharaj, a pure devotee. He Parikshit, one who has passed the examination, whether in Mahabharata or Bhagavatam or anywhere. But here question is one Parikshit, is not pure devotee, other pure devotee. That's my question. If you are pure devotee in previous kalpa also, I can understand. Because the name itself, Parikshit, means one who has passed the exam. Anyway, we can look into more.
Hare Krishna. So, some question or clarification related to Parikshit only. As you said, Parikshit is a post. So we hear Parikshit is a name. So is it a post or is it a name? You mentioned Parikshit is a post.
Well, because this very reason I related it to like position of Indra. That would be, in that sense I related, but of course it seems like it is a name and simultaneously position, so both. But then again, as Devakananda Prabhu, so it's
in each creation, if you read in Bhagavatam, each creation, the Saptarishi, each Manvantar, the Saptarishi, Indra, and they all come. So Indra is a post, that is understood. But Parikshit, the first time I'm hearing the Kalpabhed, what he said, I thought Mahabharata and Bhagavatam both has a interrelationship. Otherwise, we'll say Yudhishthira are also Kalpabhed.
because Puranas are, I read in the Puranas, each Purana is spoken in different kalpa. So it's not that all the Puranas presented this Kali Yuga are from the same kalpa, they're from different kalpas. That's why stories also vary. So that's
true.
mentioned in the Puranas itself.
But Mahabharata,
And this is how I think Jiva Goswami also reconciles the contradiction.
see Mahabharata happened in this kalpa. Earlier it was Satyug, Dwapar, Treta and Kali. The whole cycle is changed only in this kalpa. Satyug is first yuga, Dwapar is second yuga, Treta is third and Kali is fourth. Only in this Chaturjugi it has been changed, not earlier. So this happened. Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this Chaturjugi. Same as this Mahabharata happened in this Chaturjugi. Kurukshetra is there, everything is there in this Chaturjugi. So, Mahabharata and Bhagavatam has a lot of relationship. Anyway, we can look into.
There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita everyone knows, evam parampara praptam imam rajasaya vidu. And it's important that the word supreme science is mentioned there. The word supreme science. So this particular Bhagavad Gita that is spoken 5,000 years ago is for this particular yuga in this particular universe. But the supreme science, Krishna says that he's spoken it before to, Vivaswan and, Ishvaku and Manu. So it could be that the Bhagavad Gita is more concise and precise for the particular yoga and the particular universe, in that sense. So it would be nice that we just stick to this particular yoga and particular universe in the present situation, especially from Prabhupada's translation and his purports in the present Srimad Bhagavatam. Otherwise it can lead to not controversies, it just leads to the details may differ from one thing to another. And also I can also understand that English may not be your first language, right? So maybe you may have used the word position and post and name, interchangeably also. So we can discount that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.